Hey folks, what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about how you save a JPEG or a PNG out of Photoshop. I have this image here and it's set up the way I want it to. It's in the right color space, it's RGB. Remember, for JPEGs and PNG generally you're going to be looking at those on the screen, so you need to be in RGB mode. I've already resized it. You can do that in the dialog box we're going to use, but it's better if you do it within Photoshop. So I went to image size, and did it there. And now I'm going to go to File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. Now, I know there are other ways of doing this in Photoshop. I don't care. This is the best way that I found. And I apparently I'm not the only person who thinks this, because Adobe still includes this dialog box, even though it's been around forever, for those of us old cranky guys who, or people who want to use these additional tools. So, I have mine by default set up in 4UP, but if you come in and it looks something like this, or like this, or like this, where you have 2 or 4, this is where you switch it to 4UP. Now, one of the great things about the 4UP dialog box is it allows me to compare different results and kind of fine tune it as I go. One of the things about JPEGs and PNG is you can play with the compression settings and get it just as compressed as you need it to be and still maintain the quality that you want. Sometimes you don't really care what it looks like, you just need to get it out, and you can do a really high compression setting, or you really want it to look great and you don't want to have any of the artifacts that come with high compression, so you can have a very low compression setting. So I'm going to start with the JPEG out of this drop-down box, dialog box here. You could also pick PNG. Note that there are GIF and PNG8 and bumps or Windows bitmap files that you can do as well. Stay away from these are evil. But we're going to talk about JPEGs first. So I've got it set to JPEG. There's some default settings here you could go with. Very high, that's an 80 quality. Or you can play with the quality right here. There's a slider that goes along right here where you can play around with that. I'm going to leave this at 80 for right now. Or you can manually put it in. Remember, you can also just click directly on the word right there and change it there as well. You can blur it. Don't blur it. If you want to blur it, just do a blur within Photoshop itself. Matte colors are really not an issue because Photoshop does not support JPEG does not support transparency. Progressive JPEGs are really useful. We'll talk more about those in the web class. Optimize is good. I'm not going to mess with the color profile. We'll talk about that in the advanced Photoshop class, the color correction class next semester. So I'm going to leave it as an sRGB file. I could resize it down here, but again, I said it's better to resize your image in the image size dialog box in Photoshop, in the main part of Photoshop. But let's go ahead and take a look at the compression settings here. So I've got this farm back here. I can see that this looks good. I'm starting to get some weird artifacts up here in the sky when the quality is set down to like 17. I don't like that. 35 doesn't look so bad, but I thought that there were also some wonky artifacts up here in the clouds when it got down to 35. So that one's not good. One of the great things about the 4UP dialog box now, or the 4UP setting, is let's say I decide that the 80 might be a bit too high in quality, it's more than I need. I can set this other box here to say 60. Oh, come on. Like so. And then if I decide that's too low, I can try to fine tune it with this third dialog box right here. I could maybe choose something between 60 and 80, like 70 or something like that. So you can compare the three, see which one is exactly the way you want it to be. And then the main thing to pay attention to when you're looking at this is notice these sizes right here. 243 kilobytes, 178 kilobytes, 210 kilobytes. That's telling you roughly how big this image is going to be when you export it, the JPEG from Photoshop. That may be very important to you depending on who your audience is and what kind of bandwidth they're going to need in order to see this picture if you're sending it to them across the internet. Now, let's take a look at the PNG. PNG-24s are basically the same as JPEGs, except they're an open source format, meaning that no one's going to come and sue you later on. They're much more popular for that reason. A lot of people like them. One of the main reasons for using JPEGs over PNG-24s is the compression quality is much higher. In other words, remember how when this was a JPEG, it was, remember when this was a JPEG and, let me switch that back. JPEG right here. It's 210 kilobytes. As a PNG-24, as you can see, it's now 1.025 megabytes. That's huge in comparison, even though the quality is about the same. So I would probably, for this case, I don't want a PNG-24. In fact, I rarely use PNG-24s, even though a lot of people like them. The one reason why you might want to consider a PNG-24 seriously, though, is JPEGs don't support transparency. But as you can see right here, PNG-24s do. So if I turn that on and my picture had transparency in it that I needed for some reason, I could go ahead and use that. And then if I had a colored background I was putting it on, I can change the matte color right there. And I don't have anything transparent in this, so I can't access it. But that would allow me to match up my matte color with the background, and I won't get those little white artifacts in where the transparency hits. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this as a JPEG, and I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And that's it. That's all you got to do to save a JPEG or a PNG-24 out of Photoshop. The process is basically the same for Illustrator, but I'm going to record a separate video for that. Talk to you later.